Hello everyone, my name is Bayan Alabdullah. I'm a PhD candidate at University of Sussex. Today, I'm presenting a joint work with Dr. Natalia Beloff and Dr. Martin White about the identification of free text. To begin, information related to individual has become a very valuable asset. The advances in information technology have enabled organizations to store and analyze large amounts of personal data. Sharing and mining of these data help to improve the quality of people's life. However, this storing and analyzing of potentially sensitive data raise serious privacy concerns, which lead legal system to establish a new law to protect the privacy of individual information. A well-known example is the new General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which outlines specific set of rules for sharing and storing personal data. Data minimization is one of the fundamental principles of GDPR, which has strict data retention policy. This protection means that the individual's personal data can be retained for no longer than necessary to carry out the purpose for which the data was initially processed. The GDPR also restricts the use of personal data beyond the purpose for which the data was originally collected. GDPR also on the right of data subject more seriously than ever before. For example, the right to be consent, the right to be rectification, and the right to be forgetting. All these rights provide significant protection of data subject privacy, and meanwhile put stricter restriction on data processing. And without complying with this new privacy regulation, organizations are prohibited from performing data processing activity that have been relied upon for many years. However, these rules and application do not prevent the use of personal data for analytics or other useful secondary application. They do, however, require an implementation of new technical and organizational measures to protect the data. The GDPR explicitly points to the data de-identification, specifically to the pseudonymization, as a measure that can support meeting the requirement of several of its provisions. So what is data de-identification? Data de-identification refers to the process of removing or obscuring any personal identifiable information from dataset to minimize the risk of disclosure of data subject identity. In United States, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act define 18 data elements, such as name, date, phone numbers, that consider identifiable health information. Those elements must be removed or generalized from data to be considered de-identified. There are two methods for data de-identification: pseudonymization and anonymization. Anonymization refers to the process of data de-identification that produces anonymized data that cannot be reversed back to the original data. Anonymized data is not considered personal data and it's not subject to data and is not subject to the privacy regulation. The drawbacks of this method is that there is no mechanism by which the individual identification can be recovered if needed. In case of pseudonymization, the identified datasets are allowed to contain encrypted identifier where only the authorized individual have access to the encryption key. The existence of the key makes it possible to recover the original data for user with the correct authorization. This is explained why pseudonymization data at least potentially still considered personal data and subject to data protection rule. Pseudonymization can be dynamic or static. Static when token used in constant space to replace identifying information, and in most scenarios it's need to maintain lookup table. In a dynamic pseudonymization, tokens are dynamic and algorithms produce different results every time. In this example, we can see that in static pseudonymization, the same value, for example here the name, are always replaced with the same token, which make it vulnerable to re-identification. While in dynamic pseudonymization, tokens are dynamic and the algorithm always produce different results for every time, which make the re-identification controlled by authentic user. Our review shows that the most existing de-identification developed long before GDPR requirements were established. Previous work in data de-identification have been largely developed with the field of data anonymization. Where data shared with third party for secondary use. The drawback of this method is that they are usually irreversible. There is no mechanism by which an individual identification can be recovered. In pseudonymization, many implementations use static pseudonyms for data subject, while others may contain indirect identifier, and in both cases, these fail to protect against re-identification due to the privacy breach arising from the linkage re-identification attack. In this paper, we aim to address this gap by developing a reversible de-identification system for unstructured textual data. The system detects all personal information specified by HIPAA, which include direct and indirect identifiers, and encrypt them using dynamic key encryption algorithm. The proposed method consists of two key components that are integrated together to de-identify unstructured textual data. The first one is the core filter, the state-of-the-art tool for extracting personal identifier from free text to detect personal information within unstructured text and replace them with encrypted string using ART algorithm. Brief description for each component in the following slides. To address the task of locating PHI, we use an overlapping pipeline of multiple state-of-the-art methods provided by filter. This pipeline includes pattern matching, statistical modeling, blacklist, and whitelist to detect all personal health information. This pipeline guarantees to detect all the personal data specified by HIPAA, which include direct and indirect identifier. All the detected personal health information will be encrypted using ART algorithm. ART is a lightweight encryption algorithm. This algorithm uses the idea of balanced binary tree along with the ASCII table for character substitution. It also uses dynamic key generation to encrypt each character using different key. So, how does the data flow within the integrated system? First, the text file goes through the recognizer phase, where all personal data will be marked as a PHI using filter pipeline. Then, all the marked token will be replaced with encrypted string that can be retrieved using ART algorithm. So here is an example of the original note. And here is the de-identified note after the de-identification process. We can see that all personal information such as date, name, insurance number are replaced with encrypted string. And here the regenerated note after the regeneration process. So we can see that all the encrypted PHI are regenerated correctly. To evaluate the system, we use I2B2 testing corrupt that annotated to be comply with HIPAA guidelines. The evaluation done by running an evaluation script that automatically compare the identified note by the proposed system ARTPHIL to the annotated I2B2, the identification corrupt at character level, to quantify PHI detection performance and re-identification risk. We report performance primarily using three metrics: precision, recall, and F measure. The results show that ARTPHIL achieved an overall F2 score of 92, with recall of 96 and precision of 79. A high recall is generally preferred over high precision, as it measures the percentage of PHI that correctly identify. And the privacy of data subject is preferred over the encrypted unnecessary word. This table shows the recall by each PHI category and the probability of re-identification risk if the PHI is not detected. In terms of execution time, the time necessary to run 540 nodes as a single process was 2.5 seconds, and the time required to run 20 batch of 540 nodes was 54 seconds, which indicate the applicability of apply ARTPHIL to large dataset or for use in the delay-sensitive application. To summarize, the experiment results for ARTPHIL indicate that ARTPHIL is able to detect and encrypt 97% of personal information, which make it a good candidate for a lightweight de-identification system and can bridge the gap between the GDPR obligation and secondary use of data. The runtime result indicate that ARTPHIL is applicable for apply in large dataset or delay sensitive system. Thank you for listening, and please let me know if you have any question.